Good people of YouTube, I'm the Watch Idiot, and this watch, the Traska Venturer GMT, and especially the all-new Miyota 9075 movement are signs of amazing things to come, because it's a flyer GMT with a jumping local hour hand, obviously, and it's all for $695, and that's just insane considering that most flyer GMTs cost thousands of dollars more, and also it happens to be an awesome watch in general. So in this video, I'm gonna go over the different aspects of the watch, like the dial, case, bracelet, all that stuff, and then also what it's been like to live with it for the past 2 months that I've owned it. But I will also talk about how the new Miyota 9075 movement has been performing and what the overall experience has been like for me, because a huge reason why I got this watch in the first place was because of this game-changing movement. Also, this watch is for sale only though because I've got new watches coming in over the next few months, and rather than it just sitting in the watch box, I would much rather have someone else fully enjoy it and give it a good life, especially since this black dial and white dial versions are sold out. Also, I think the other dials might be sold out as well, not sure. More info in the description down below and also in the pinned comment, and yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So as always, let's do the dimensions first, just so we all know what we're dealing with here. And we've got ourselves a 38.9 millimeter case width, a lug to lug of 46.1 millimeters, lug width of 20 millimeters, and most importantly, a total thickness of 12.5, not just the 10 millimeters without the crystal, which is still really amazing considering that it's got a flyer GMT in there. So yeah, Tudor, I'm looking at you. Let's get some thinner GMT movements out over here, because yeah, it's been possible for a while now, and yeah, even more so now, especially at this price point. But I digress. On the wrist, it wears a bit more like a 38 millimeter watch, because all you really see is the bezel, and the bezel is 38 millimeters. So yeah, very happy with the general size. In comparison, it will wear a bit smaller than the Black Bay 58, and compared to a Black Bay Pro, it does wear visually smaller, and obviously the near 2 millimeter thinner case does make a big difference in the overall wearing experience. Part of the wearing experience is the total weight, which is 131 grams, which isn't super heavy, nor is it super light. You know, it just feels right for this size of watch, nice and solid. Basically, when I think of a spectacularly proportioned watch, in my mind, this is what I think of, something like this. Yeah, Traska did a really good job here. So the watch is great, we'll get into that later, but a huge reason why I got this watch was to try out the brand new Miyota 9075 movement, which is a big milestone for the watch industry and the community, because it's brought the once very expensive flyer GMT complication to this sub $1,000 price point. And yeah, I mean, I love my collar GMTs. They have much more functionality for me and my use, but there is just something undeniably fun about a jumping hour hand. So first off, the performance of my particular example has been incredible over the past 2 months. It's been gaining about 2.5 to 4 seconds a day only. I mean, depending on the position, which is amazing for any watch out there pretty much. Finally, how it actually feels is important, because unlike other movements that are more or less set it and forget it, or just change the date every 2 months, you actually get more opportunities to interact with this movement, especially if you travel a lot. And the feel of the crown as you're clicking through the hours, moving forwards and backwards, is way better than expected, because it's, I mean, just barely a notch below the Grand Seiko GMT click feel and the Tudor GMT click feel. And all that for a $695 watch is just incredible. So now that I've had a really great experience with this particular movement, I'm definitely looking forward to all the other watches that are gonna come out using this movement, unlike So Proud movements, which I completely avoid, but that's a story for another day, I guess. Now on to the dial, and one of the other big reasons I got this is because it's got a lacquered black dial, which means that it looks endlessly deep and just jet black. Matte black dials, on the other hand, are actually dark gray pretty much instead of black, and this is something that I haven't experienced since my Zin 556 that I used to call the black hole, because of how black the dial was. I mean, literally no matter what lighting condition it was in, it was just the same level of super jet black. But it's got a domed sapphire crystal, so you do end up seeing some reflections here, which, I mean, isn't end of the world, but I always prefer flat sapphire crystals, just because then you can really see everything in the dial without any distractions. And yeah, this would have been absolutely next level with the flat sapphire, but once again, not a big deal. The baton hands and indices are clean and simple with a double baton for the 12 o'clock, and yeah, no complaints here considering that it's supposed to be a classic looking watch that can be worn anytime with anything. But a little nice bit of flourish is that on the hour and minute hands, the sides are polished and the top is brushed, so that makes for, you know, a nice bit of light play as well. And then we've got the GMT hand, which is well proportioned, goes all the way to the edge pretty much, and it's legible against everything else that's happening on the dial. And yeah, it's just simple with a red triangle at the top. Simple and classic. But then we've got an awesome addition of the inner rotatable 24-hour bezel, which can be used to track another time zone without having to adjust any of the hands, or in my case, I can still use it to time things by lining up the 24 to the minute hand. Oh, and we finally have the date at the 6, which is the best place to put a date. And yeah, they framed it as well, so I'd say that this is pretty much as good as a date window can get. And as for the lume, it's pretty solid. Definitely not the brightest out there, but I mean, it's applied cleanly, which is important to me. And I love that the 24-hour bezel is also lume, because then you can actually use the GMT hand at night, you know, if you're in an overnight flight or something like that. So yeah, overall, everything is proportioned well and pretty much right where I'd want everything to be. And onto the case and bracelet, and I'll get this out of the way because I know many of you noted it, but the awesome inner rotatable bezel is controlled by a second crown at the 10 o'clock position. And yeah, this is gonna be very much a love-hate thing. Some people are gonna just hate it right off the bat. I happen to like a little bit of asymmetry. I like it on the Seamaster 300 as well, so I'm all for it, especially since it's actually doing something and not just a helium escape valve. And yeah, it's got a little globe on it too, which is pretty cool, and it's different from the other crown, the main crown, which has a Traska logo on it. Nicely done. So onwards with the case, it's once again just classic. I mean, not very many flourishes other than the top being brushed and the sides being polished with a subtle polished bevel running along the top. But the cool thing is that they included drilled lugs, which are super useful when taking out the bracelet, swapping straps, all that good stuff, because this is an absolute strap monster. So and it's got a 20mm lug width, so yeah, all good on this end. And yeah, I also realized that I'm using the word classic a lot here, and that continues with the bracelet because it's a 3-link bracelet that just cannot go wrong with a watch of this style. But Traska went a little bit further and made the bracelet fully articulating, so that means that it really does drape over the wrist very nicely, makes it super comfortable, and it just feels really silky when you're just moving it around. And the clasp is really solid with double push buttons, and the insides have perlage on it, which is a surprising little show of flair here, especially since it's on the inside, but I like this sort of hidden detail. But the biggest positive about this clasp is that it's got 5 micro adjust holes that span a greater distance than a single link, which means that you will never be in between links again. And yeah, Tudor, once again, I'm looking at you. Please, for God's sake, just include half links. It's not that hard. Oh, and the whole watch has a proprietary scratch-resistant coating, which I've heard, you know, good things about, but for me, I wasn't expecting too much from it. I baby my watches, but even after 2 months, they'll get some hairline scratches. But here, not a single scratch despite doing all that, which is kind of bizarre. So yeah, definitely a good coating, and whatever you did, Traska, bravo. And so far I've been very complimentary about this entire watch, but it's not all perfect just because the finish of the bracelet isn't as perfectly flat as other watches in this price point. So, you know, not quite up to the really high standards that I was expecting from Traska, given all the good things I've heard about it. But it's probably a nitpick, and it's a matter of maybe just expectations being a bit too high. So there you have it. Let me know what you think about this new movement and the Traska itself down in the comments, and go do all the good YouTube things below here. And yeah, until the next video, good day.